discussion period. Part of why you're here today, obviously, is because you have some form of an interest in learning about teaching. So we want to know, instead of just giving the information that we think is most important to you, what you think is important about and what anxieties you have about going into teaching. So I know for myself, the first course I ever taught was the Sociology of Social Welfare. Well, I researched work and health. This was not my area. I vaguely remember taking this course in 4th year. And this is something that I had to learn how to develop myself and design myself. So my anxieties were just poking through, saying I've never taught a course on my own before and I know nothing about this material. It's at an institution that's not my own and I have no support here. So finding your way along this road is an interesting experience, and as you start applying for jobs, you'll each have different concerns and things that you think might come up. So I'm going to ask you now to think towards the future a little bit and start to think about some of these things that you think might arise when you're going through that. So we have our expert panelists here to answer a lot of your questions, and I'm going to jump in as well and answer as I can. As a fairly new instructor, I've taught about, I think, 4 or 5 classes right now. So hopefully we can have the input here to answer what you have. So we have about half an hour for this, and I'm just going to sit down and join, and I'll open the floor to you.
I really enjoyed all those talks. Thank you. But I wanted to ask if any of you have experience teaching online courses, or if you know from colleagues, if you have any advice for doing that.
I worked as a TA, just doing marking for an online course. So I wasn't constructing the course on the platform or anything. I was just receiving, had access to the platform, would download submissions, upload them, review them within. But what kind of a question did you have particularly regarding?
Just like what the differences are between the types of things that you're talking about in the classroom, like engagement, or like taking on bigger.
So I avoided it on purpose, but so there's a lot of DE courses, so distance editing on permit, and people notice you have to be much more on top of getting back emails and marking on time than in real life. Right? So that, because if students don't hear from you, they start emailing everyone else they can think of. And then they have to track you down, and you just, like, you make so much work for other people that's the one thing I would say.
And I also have a lot of colleagues who have taught online courses as well. I usually add an online component within my class, but so far I've done lecture-based mostly. And one of the things that I've been told is to under-promise and over-deliver. So when you set out those first expectations at the beginning, make it very clear. I will have online office hours from this time to this time. I will be answering my emails from, say, 3 to 5 p.m. every day, never on weekends, right? But then you can log in and answer those emails if you find that you do have the time, right? So then they say, wow, she's so on top of things, but if you don't get it back to them outside of those hours of 3 to 5, it's still okay. Another thing that I've been told as well with online courses is that your syllabus needs to be even clearer. So all of the guidelines, the expectations, the way that things are structured need to be set out. And the last thing that I've heard as well with this is about TA coordination. So if you're instructing an online course and you have a bunch of TAs working under you, you need to come up with some kind of system for how your students are communicating with who. So you may say letters A through M, email TA1, N through Z, TA2. If you don't get the appropriate response, please feel free to email me. Because oftentimes what you get, and we get this in classroom-based courses as well too, is you get a student emailing the instructor at the same time they send a separate email to the TA, and they wait to get the answer that they want, and then they turn around to the instructor and say, oh, but the TA said I could do this. Okay? So it's a dirty little trick, and they often get away with it more often online courses because they feel anonymous. So really coordinating how that communication happens is a good way to go with that.
I am hoping to evaluate students on whether they've read texts by a certain date. Can I evaluate individual students, or will I be compelled to evaluate the class as a whole using the clicker?
So the clicker software spits out who said what. So yeah, you would know exactly what student got it right. So this is a typical thing that people do, is they do sort of a reading quiz at the beginning of every lecture. So they say, okay, in the reading, so-and-so argued this, and it's sort of a test whether they read it, and you know which student got what, right or wrong.
And is it by name? Like, do I give my clicker my name kind of when I buy it, or how does that work?
So they log in, so with our system,
Yeah.
through the course management system, they register their clicker, which has a unique barcode, and it's tagged to them, and they only do that, they do that for each course.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Do you, just kind of related to that, do you know any like apps or other software that have similar purpose?
They're all kinds,
Okay.
but,
This is your favorite?
well, Waterloo went with iClickers everywhere, right? This is the one system, so other universities kind of have, it's up to the professor, so some university students will have 7 different types of clickers, and it's absurd. So, yeah, we use iClickers, they're great. People are trying to work on, apps with their phones, right? They can sort of do it that way, but yeah, I know this best, and this is really simple.
Okay.
I guess another question along the same line, do you know where, is there a good place to look for, like, to answer at least kind of like technical questions about how the clicker software works and whatnot? And also just like if you can say anything just technically about how, is it integrated with other programs, or how does it?
Yep.
how's it- yeah.
So, first, find out, for whatever university you're working at, ask the sort of IT people if your university supports a clicker type system, because they might be like us, they've gone with one they want you to use. So that's the easiest thing that could possibly happen. Otherwise, look into the systems yourself. Like iClicker itself has a lot of support, a lot of information. It'll tell you everything you need to know, write great manuals. And then the last question was?
Like, is it integrated with PowerPoint or?
Oh, so it is a standalone program. What I had was it overlays, and you can move it around and everything. So it's not integrated into PowerPoint, but you can use Keynote, PowerPoint, whatever. And then the software for iClicker is integrated into basically every course management system. So Angel, Desire to Learn, all those things. Really seamless.
I have a question about dealing specifically with like first year students and I guess non-specialist students. I guess Rachel, since you teach a business ethics course, you probably, I'm guessing you have non-philosophy students.
I get everybody. I got my first philosophy student this time out of 500 people.
Yeah. So I mean, like, is there any specific advice on dealing with people who? I mean, I guess when you work in the area, you have certain expectations because you see it work done at a certain level. Then you get first years, and you just kind of. Is there any kind of advice you have in dealing with kind of?
So that answer first.
I can actually,
Because I
go
had
for
things
that
to
one.
say.
As sociologists, and Jenny probably get at this too, and you've taught general arts courses too, Ali, we have a range of individuals in our courses. I like to poll my class on the first day, and I've even done this in my 300 classrooms. It would be great with clickers. I haven't used clickers yet, so I'll actually send out or hand out a sheet, and it says, who are you? Why are you here? What do you hope to get out of this? And what's the best way that you learn? So from that point, I might get half of them back that say, I'm an engineer, I'm an economist. Like, okay, great. Well, why is an engineer or economist in my class? I have that information right in front of me, right? They tell me why. How do they learn? That might be different from a sociology student. I have all of that in front of me as well too. I also preface my courses as well by saying this is a sociology course. There's certain theories and methods that you will need to learn about, and these are the expectations that you have to meet to get the credit, obviously, and to learn within our discipline. However, I understand there's a diversity of you, and if you don't come from the same background, please feel free to come to office hours, let me know if you need assistance. If you are falling behind because this is not your discipline, I can help you, right? So that's the way that I like to deal with it. Maybe Ali or Jenny or Rachel, if you have any comments?
So I think this is, so all the courses I teach are like this, right? It's a range of people, usually non-specialists. This is where I think what Allison was talking about was most important, with coming up with the course goals. And really, you sort of have, if you're designing your own course, right? And I designed all mine, I didn't take them over. You really have to think about what do you want people to learn, right? You have to sort of imagine where they're starting and where you think you can reasonably take them in a semester. and be realistic, because it's not far, okay? Right? Yeah. So be realistic with your goals, understand that they're coming in not as specialists, and that you've got a whole range of people with different skill sets. So some are gonna find stuff really simple, so you need to sort of design the course to have a little bit for everybody. So if they want to sort of go deeper, you've got ways that they can do that, right? Assignments that let them sort of take on more ambitious projects, but you don't sort of push that on other people. That's sort of, I think, would be the most general advice I can give.
That's a great idea, and also this idea of asking the students what they expect to learn, and then also communicating to them at the beginning of the semester how far we expect to take them, what we hope they will achieve. So that they can just kind of reflect on, okay, this is what I was expecting, this is what I'm going to be presented with, and then they can just navigate that hopefully and meet in the middle, maybe.
Good.
And sometimes as well too, just to pick up on what Allison was saying, sometimes in that first week they realize that the class really isn't for them as well too. I mean, if you sign up for a German course and you've signed into the wrong level and you really don't understand any German, it's best to know off the bat, hey, you know, I'm not going to be successful here. It's going to be a very frustrating experience for me. So maybe I need to think about a more introductory level course, right? So sometimes too, students do realize, and I've had students approach me before and say, you know, sociology just really isn't my thing, and they probably won't take a sociology course before that. So being very upfront at the beginning with what you're doing might prevent them from maybe taking something that they weren't quite prepared for.
One tiny thing. A lot of people teach this one course, and so I have so many people come in scared of the course. And if you design it properly, they stay in it and they're like, oh, this isn't so hard. Right? So I think that it gives you a role to sort of bring them along.
Another comment about teaching non-experts, obviously. Another component of that is sometimes teaching the students how to learn, because within every discipline, there's a certain discourse, there's certain tools that one uses, a certain way of thinking. So, or if you're learning a language, for example, not everyone has learned another language besides their native language. So that's a very specific kind of skill that a lot of people coming into our classes don't have, and we have to train them in that. So, and then I find it's helpful to draw on my experience. If I remember how I learned to learn a foreign language, I can give them tips there, and we can kind of train them in the way of thinking that is appropriate for the material.
Sometimes that's hard though, right? Because we're like, it was easy for us, so it's sometimes like,
Oh, it wasn't easy.
no.
No.